Hello, and thank you for tuning into this episode of Roots of the Valley, a show where we are unearthing all the secrets that turned our valley into what we see today. I'm your host, John Franklin, and I'm here with Janet Mayer. She is the president of the Toppenish Mural Society. Thank you so much for speaking with me today, Janet.
Well, thank you for your interest.
So today we are talking about the murals in Toppenish. So how did Toppenish become the city of murals?
That's a good question. When the sugar beet factory closed down many years ago, a lot of jobs were taken away from the valley, and that took away some of the other businesses in town. And so a small group of people got together trying to come up with an idea of how to revitalize Toppenish. And they came up with the idea of painting a couple of murals at first. And that kind of helped celebrate the centennial of Washington State. And they did it in a mural in a day where there was a lead artist, but then on the actual day of the painting, they gathered, it may have been like 12 artists together to paint it all in one day. So they were able to gather the community and made a big event of it. And it was so successful that they just kept making more and more murals. And most of these murals, or many of these murals, were done in a mural in a day, where again, you had a lead artist who came up with a concept and he drew the original, but then they brought in other artists to help finish that mural in one day with the observance of the community.
So is this sort of a community event to not only paint these murals, but see them getting painted as well?
It was. We haven't, there's some 3 new ones that were painted rather recently. Those were not done in a mural in a day though. It's been a while since we have done that. Most of our efforts have actually been in refurbishing the murals because, like I say, it started back in 1989. And that's a long time for these murals to hold up with all of the weather, the snow and the rain and the wind and the sun beating down on these murals. So we've really spent a lot of our time and our money and resources in basically restoring these murals. But the most recent ones were advertised, but we didn't set it up as several artists doing it. It was one artist that painted all 3 of these murals. It wasn't with a fanfare watching. We'd like to do that with some murals in the future though, because we have some that have been torn down or have to come down, and we'd like to redo those murals, and it would be fun to do the same idea, set it up in the park and have them paint the mural and then reinstall it where it needs to go.
So back in 1989, what was the first mural that was painted?
Clearing of the Land. It is still here. We still have that mural, but that is one that is slotted to be refurbished.
So as I'm looking around this room, there's a lot of the composites of the murals, and they all seem to have an Old West theme to them. Is that sort of something that happened on purpose, or is that something that just happened?
All of the murals have a historic basis, and that is the way all of the murals will be done in the future as well. It is either based off of a photograph or a memory of a time frame, and so they all have historical basis to it, and they are all depicted in a realistic fashion. So you will notice as you look at each of the art pieces, there's no abstract, there's no, it is displayed in a very realistic fashion. And because we are trying to tell the story of Toppenish as well as the valley.
So a lot of these also have really old style buildings. Are most of those buildings still here, or?
Many have been destroyed in a fire. Some are here, but a lot have been destroyed in a fire.
Okay. So speaking of these murals, I'm sure that being the president of the Mural Society, you have a couple of favorite murals?
That's a hard one, especially since I became more involved as being on the board. I feel like a mother hen to these, and so they each hold a special place in my heart. But I have to tell you a funny story. Quite a few years ago, my parents came to visit. And I said, I wanted to give them a mural tour. And I said, I think there's an artist working on one of the murals right now. And let's go take a look. And as we approached, and it happens to be this it's called The Rodeo. And the artist actually painted himself on a ladder. Looks like he's actually painting this mural. So I told my parents, let's go see if he's working on it. And as we're approaching the mural, they said, oh yeah, there he is. And I fooled them, and it was a great laugh as we got closer, and they noticed that, it's painted into the mural. And so that's a fun story and a fun one for me to kind of revisit.
Is that the only time you pulled that prank on someone?
No, I've pulled that out since then. Since that worked so well the first time, I've done that a couple of other times as well. And then my husband and I owned a grocery store in town called Blue Sky Market. And for many years, we had this store until 3 years ago when we sold it. But before we did, the original owners of that store were the Campbell family, and the siblings, or actually not the siblings, but the sons and the daughters of the original family, they came to me and said that came to us and said that they wanted to paint the original store and maybe 2 more like it, but as the store progressed and got larger. So they wanted to show the progression of this store, and we loved the idea. And so they actually commissioned to have the murals put on. And so this is actually what our store originally looked like. And it was called Campbell's Grocery. And it was just a 25-foot by 25-foot. It was a little deeper, but that was their house on the back side. And then they would go through these double doors to get into the store. So it was kind of fun to listen to the stories from Paul and his siblings about growing up in that store. And then this store still exists today, it's just that it's been expanded. And so they once again showed how it expanded, how it grew in width, and then there's some wonderful interior shots of how the store was set up. And then the third mural showed how it grew again, took on a different name, but it's quite a bit longer. And so just listening to all the different stories from Paul Campbell, the son, and again, growing up in that store and having worked this store now for quite a few years, it was fun to listen to the stories and relate it to where I'm working.
So that's really interesting, I guess, how you were able to not only see the history of Toppenish, but a little bit of the history of your life as well in these stores.
Yeah.
And then that mural. However, how do the citizens of Toppenish usually interact with the murals?
I think they have a lot of pride for the murals because they've seen how it's brought recognition to Toppenish. We've received some awards, prettiest painted places, one of the prettiest painted places in America, and the Georgie Award, and so it has brought pride to the residents, and they've seen the tourists come through and admire the art. So I do think that the residents really like it, and they show a lot of respect. In most cases, they show a lot of respect for the murals. It's very, very small percentage of murals that might get some graffiti on them.
So now that you're the president of the Mural Association, has that changed your way of viewing the murals between now and before you were involved in the society?
It has opened my eyes into how much work is involved in not just doing the historical research on coming up with what you're going to paint, but who's going to paint it and getting bids on that process. And for most of the case, it's been in the restoring of these murals. We have to find artists that have the talent of recreating, and not recreating, actually, it's you're wanting to match the exact mural that was originally done. So they're not creating their own piece of art. They're trying to enhance what was there. Maybe we've had some fading that has occurred with the art, or some of it is peeled away and they have to look at pictures of what it used to look like and recreate that exact item that was there, and the colors. And so it's finding that artist that has that talent to create a realistic piece of artwork, and then we have to seal it, and that's extremely expensive. So it's finding the resources, the money to be able to restore these murals. And we don't get any money from the government. We don't get any money from Toppenish. It is all based on donation, and we find grants to help us. And then we, about every other year, we'll do a mural auction dinner. And so that helps raise some funds as well. Because I think it cost us we had about 5 murals that we did, and it was about $25,000 just for sealing the mural.
Whoa.
After it was restored. One of our murals cost $9,000 just to restore. And It was a long one. If you drive around town, you'll notice how large. I mean, when you're seeing these composites, they look very small, but when you start driving around town, these are full scale. They take almost the entire building. And so they're large murals that require a lot of work to both restore and to seal.
So speaking of restoration, is there any murals that you thought, wow, this won't ever look as great as the original one, and then you restore it and it's way better than you thought it would be?
Oh, I would say all of our murals that have been restored, they've lost so much of the intensity of the color because of the sun fading the murals. And so just adding that paint back to the mural, they just pop. It's really exciting to see them come alive again after they've been restored. Unfortunately, some of our earlier murals were done on plywood. And there are 3 murals that I can think of right now that are going to have to be removed. There's no way that we can repair the plywood. They actually have holes in them. They don't hold up well to the rain and the snow and all of those physical elements. And so our goal will be to redo those murals, but we'll put them on what we now use, which is cement board. And hopefully we can do those in a mural in a day and then reinstall them where they once were. But it's kind of sad to see those murals where there's just nothing that we can do for them. And there's one I can think of that is on a huge building. It's a very large mural, but it was painted directly on the building, and it was a plaster building, and that plaster is just popping off. It's flaking off, and there's no way since it's all kind of coming off at different times, you literally will have to replaster the entire wall if you're going to repaint, and then you'll have to repaint it. So we're thinking that instead of painting directly on buildings anymore, whatever we do now will be on the cement board, and it's something that you can take off panels at a time if something gets damaged and not have to replace the whole thing, and you won't have to, have the problem with plaster falling off. So yeah, that's some of the challenges that we are facing.
So looking into the future, are there going to be any other murals that are going to be painted soon?
Well, we are working on one now. There was a longtime community member of the Chandler family that passed away. I think it's been a couple of years ago, or year to 2 years ago. And Mike Chandler had always expressed the desire to have a mural painted on one of his buildings. And he wanted to show the transportation of oil from, like, say, for example, it would come in on the train station or through a train, and then that would be transported with his horse and wagon to a location. And he always wanted to show that history of how it was kind of transported to the different businesses. And then he passed away, and the family decided they wanted to continue that. And so we do have a memorial fund that was set up, and we are close to coming together with that concept. And then we just have to find an artist and paint it. So that may come as soon as next summer.
Wow.
So we will see. And it would be fun to do that as a mural in a day. We'll just have to see. We have a lot of details to figure out before making that decision.
You did just bring up an idea that I haven't even thought of, but how were the murals originally planned out? Is it the way that you just described, where one person wants it, or is it a community decision? How is the concept of each individual mural thought up?
That's a good question. I don't know the details of each individual one, but I know that that original committee would gather pictures of the area, and then they would, they had a committee that would decide, okay, well, this looks like a great concept. Let's take this photograph and just duplicate it, or stories that they've heard, and they kind of come together with the concept. They are all true and have happened, but some were done with photographs, some were done other ways. And so they just look at all the history of the area, and they just kept finding new and interesting stories to tell through this artistic fashion.
And then looking into the future, you were telling me a little bit about this AutoCast app. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, that's something that we have recently started, and it's a company called AutoCast, and it's a free app. So we have QR codes at the site of each mural, and you can scan that, and it'll either bring you to a website or give you the ability to download this free app onto your phone. And so when you do, it'll come up, if you're in the area, it'll come up with Toppenish first. If you're out of the area, you'll have to press or type in Toppenish into the search bar. And so when Toppenish comes up, it'll first show this map of Toppenish. And there are these little green push pins that reflect each mural in town. And you can pinch the screen so you can make it larger or smaller. It will actually show the street names so that you can walk around and find these murals. Once you come to a mural, there are pictures along the bottom of the screen of each mural, and you can just kind of scroll your finger through each of the murals until you come to the one that you want. Touch it, you can make it larger, you can see a written description of that mural, but you also can press the play button. And the play button will give you this wonderful audio that's a little different from the written description. It gives you a little more information about that mural. And it starts off with either some type of music that would be of that time frame, or it will help kind of give you the feeling of that mural. It might even start out with cows mooing or horses trampling through, along the road. There's all kinds of different sound effects that we'll start off with, and that fades away to this audio that can be done it's either in English or Spanish. You can choose which way you want to listen to it, and it will, like I say, give you a little more information about that mural. It's really fun to listen to.
Oh, that's really cool to hear about how these murals are, I guess, evolving in a sense to be a lot more than originally planned.
Yeah, and I would love for the schools to take advantage of it, because just as I say, they're historical, so it can teach them about their community. But then just listening to those stories behind the mural it just makes it a lot more interesting to learn history, I think, through listening to some of these stories. So I think it would be a great advantage for the schools to come look at these, as well as tourists that just want to learn about the area.
Well, that's really cool. Thank you so much for telling me all about the Toppenish murals today. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Roots of the Valley. New episodes are going to be coming out on the 1st and 3rd Sunday of each month. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.